Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. I want to start you off with a map looking at the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation, because throughout much of the Carolinas, we were drier after that one event right in through here. Now, we had concerns last week about the low that was sitting just off the coast, possibly delivering moisture into the Carolinas, but I told you, I said, if anything shifts the track of that to the east, we were going to miss it, and we did. It stayed mostly out to open ocean. Now, the other thing I want to discuss with you about this particular graphic is the overall pattern change we're experiencing right now, because the amount of moisture that's coming to the northwest and is building today around the first of several low pressure systems coming through the United States is really starting to just really reveal what this new pattern is going to do. And I want to show you what that's going to mean for the Carolinas, and I also want to talk about what that means for other parts of the country, because we have been exceptionally dry in and throughout the Mississippi watershed, and that's going to change. But that's been a major part of some of the big economic drivers with some of our bigger crops in the country here. So let's start off with that kind of in the back of our minds as to what's going on. Now, this morning, it was interesting. I was looking here at the wind field early this morning, and here's the deep low that's moving its way over the Red River Valley up the north. And it was this same feature yesterday that drove some of the strong winds throughout the plains, which sparked a lot of fires here and really became problematic. Plus, it produced some nasty, severe weather in this area. But notice us this morning, we're sitting under a big dome of high pressure. And it was kind of interesting. Here's the low I told you to watch off the coast. It's now north of us, but that high pressure cell that's sitting over us gave us a very interesting temperature profile this morning. So we're going to start off here with just a couple of weather balloons that were launched in North Carolina. And here in Greensboro, you can see from the ground all the way up into the stratosphere how the temperature, that's this line, and the dew point temperature changed. Now notice how very dry the air is above the surface. I'm talking up there about a mile above our heads. The temperature is way over here, but the dew point is way over there. But near the surface, the two lines lie right on top of one another. And the temperature increases with height. We call that an inversion. We not only saw it there, but we can come over here to Morehead City. There it is. And we see the same feature. See the inversion down here, but then how dry it is aloft. Now why I show you that is because I was watching your satellite this morning. And you see in through this area all of this low cloud cover. So we just kind of rock back and forth here. It's been over us all morning. That is the cloud cover trapped on top of the inversion. So this, or excuse me, under the inversion. This is like a fog that's been in place here. Very low level cloud field, stratiform cloud field. By the way, as we kind of walk back and forth, you can see the potential tropical system that's out here, although it has more extratropical characteristics than tropical, and it is not a threat to North Carolina. So we're just keeping an eye on it. You can also see the next system that's building out of the plains, moving through the Midwest, delivering some of the first rainfall in certain places here in over 50 days. And you can also see the second system following it. But take a look at this. If I take you back through last night, that's all infrared imagery there. And let's get right to where the sun was setting. In parts of the Central Plains, you see the discoloration in through here? That is all dust and debris, and there's some wildfire smoke in there as well. That just shows you how dry things are in the central part of the United States. Now, as we see all of this new rain moving into the midsection of the country, and we'll talk about when it gets to the Carolinas in a moment, I just want to point out that ahead of this, we have major sections of the mid part of the country, north, south, and all the way from Colorado to Ohio, that have been very dry. And this is one of the reasons why the Mississippi is so very low, especially from southern Illinois down here to Louisiana. Now, the same pattern that got us into this dry weather, which favored a huge ridge west and a deep trough east, that's why we have all the dry weather here, that's in the convergent part of the flow of the jet stream, it also did this. Kept all the heat west and all the very cold conditions to the east. And I just want to give you some numbers to think about here. This is month-to-date temperature statistics by Climate Reporting District. Remember, if you're at 130, that's the coldest on record. Notice throughout North Carolina and all of the surrounding states, we're looking here at a top 10 to top 15 coldest Octobers on record. And remember, the records go back to 1893. That's what's been going on. Now, what got us here is gone. Now, get yourself oriented. This is the North Pole. There's Alaska. Here's North America. So you're here. What I want to point out to you is that the pattern is screaming across the Pacific. It's diving into the central part of the United States. And there's no major blocking feature in the Atlantic. Now, what's a blocking feature? Blocking features happen when you have big ridges like this where the flow splits around a low. So if I kind of write this oriented with the flow, that'd be where you have a big high there and a low here. We just don't see that. The flow's just going across over toward Europe. So without that in place, the overall pattern begins to open up. And what we end up getting out of this, just watch, is we get troughs of low pressure that just move across the country, one after another. And as they move across the country, this is all the way out to the beginning of November, getting out here into the second week of November, that is what I refer to as an open and moving pattern. So the first effect is going to be what it does to temperatures. Did you notice that throughout much of that animation? I'll just take it back here to November 2nd. We do favor more troughs in the west with broader height or higher heights or warmer conditions east. Because of that, we're going to see more colder weather to the west and at times flashes of warmth to the east. Now this is way too late for this kind of warmth to really be beneficial to where our crops finished. And unfortunately, we let them finish under some pretty cold conditions due to the position of the jet stream, which is now completely flip-flopped. But overall, we do see the next 15 days, we're going to have more warmer days than colder, but the temperature pattern will be volatile. Now from there, I'd like to show you what the overall precipitation looks like. You see all these systems coming through the midsection of the country are going to take some time to get over here to the Carolinas and Virginia. Very wet in through this corridor right in through here. And that's primarily coming from one system today, followed by another low coming in following it here throughout the middle part of this week. But the trajectory right now is to take these systems north very quickly. But as the system progresses, the jet stream pattern progresses, we're going to start to deliver more of these events over to us in the Carolinas into the New England area. And I'm going to show you when and then where that's coming from. Because right now it looks something like this. This starts off 9 a.m. Central Time today. I just play through the day today. We're under high pressure. We then get into Tuesday. The low goes through Illinois, my home state. And it may not be until Wednesday afternoon that the front from the second system comes cutting over the Appalachian Mountains. So relatively dry until that point. Could see maybe some isolated storms out of this. But I got to let the European model pick up from there because it's going to take us out 10 days. So we've already seen up to about this point. That's Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and Wednesday evening. So some scattered storms possible on Wednesday. Now what we're going to watch after that is this system. It came into the northwest. It's got to get around this big high pressure cell that's sitting over the eastern Great Lakes. And when does it do that? Not until we get out there toward the weekend. Here it is finally on Saturday night. From there going up to Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon and evening. And it may not be until early next week. See that? That's next Monday that starts to press over the top of us. Now, if the models have this right, in other words, the system, which today is coming through the Gulf of Alaska, dives into the northwest later this week, comes down this upcoming weekend into Texas, and then emerges here by the time we get out to next Monday, Tuesday, it will require several things lining up. Like this high pressure cell needs to stay here to help feed moisture into this. And the trajectory of the system needs to follow the line I just drew. But as it stands, not only do the operational runs produce that rainfall, but so do the ensemble members. So there's pretty good evidence that this is going to occur. And that's why we see out there in week 2 above normal precipitation. But until then, we're going to be on the drier side of things. Now from here, I'd like to show you total accumulated precipitation. And so you notice if I just take us out all the way through let's just take it out there to next Sunday night before that next round of rain comes through. We're drier, but there's quite a bit of rain that's coming into this area. Now, as I mentioned, the Mississippi water levels are very, very low. Near Memphis, they're 15 feet below the low water mark. And so will this rain start to revive that and allow barge traffic to go? Remember, the first thing the rain's got to do is moisten the soil. Then it's got to get into the tributaries and into the major river systems and then eventually into the Mississippi. And what it's trying to overcome is this. This is our latest national soil moisture data from NASA going down 16 inches. That's the profile, down to 16 inches. And so you can see how dry things are throughout the Mississippi watershed. We have been a bit drier too in parts of the Carolinas. Notice that as well. But what's really important about this upcoming forecast I'm going to give you is how much this map changes between now and next April. Because we currently have 82% of the country in some form of drought. If I just show you here, let's go to the change maps. Over the last month, take a look here. There we go. This is how much the drought monitor has changed. Now, we saw from Ian rains that knocked out the drought that was in this part of North Carolina. But just go west, and you can see that we've had some places that are having a 3-class degradation just in the last 4 weeks. Now, what is going to be the catalyst for change over the next several months is going to be what happens with our La Nina. La Nina still is the most dominant teleconnection. And remember, the cold ocean temperatures are the symptom. The strong trade winds are the cause. We have strong trades coming across the Pacific, strong westerly winds coming here across the Indian Ocean, and that's producing a lot of rising motion in this area. Now, what I want to do at the end of this video is I want to talk about where this is all going, what it means for our upcoming winter and next spring forecast, if it remains the dominant teleconnection or if it lets go, and what it means for South America. So let's do that. First, when we look right now, this is the map I want. There we go. Over the next 15 days, let's just find where the reds meet the blues, right in through there. That's where the best rising motion is going to be. So this represents the westerly winds coming out of the Indian Ocean, and these are the easterly winds coming out of the Pacific. And as I've said in every video for the last, feels like 6 weeks, when La Nina lets go, this is where I'm going to see it first. But right now, see where that line is? If I trace it down here, that means the MJO is going to be sitting somewhere probably over phase 6 and 7. We can even see that in the phase diagram. The MJO is liking to hang out right in through here. Now, what's that mean? That means historically, if the MJO is in phase 6, we tend to have a very vigorous Pacific jet and no real sign of a big block. I don't think too big of a block in the Atlantic. Now you're going, wait a minute, doesn't that look like an omega block? It could be. But I still think that we will have enough momentum carrying the pattern through here that I don't expect this to be a major feature. Now, I could very well be wrong. And if that's the case, then we're going to stay cold along the East Coast. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the pattern's more progressive than that. Maybe the reason for that is because we're really blending this in with the phase 7, which means the momentum stays high here, but we just don't see the reason for all the blocking upstream. Now, what does all that mean? If we just said, okay, Eric, you say the trade winds are doing this, the MJO is responding. The effect of that is this map. So this means more systems come into the west, they eject through the plains, come out in the Midwest, and then work their way northeast. Now, why we see the drier bias in through here is because when this model was initialized, the first 10 days of the forecast were drier. But overall, with time, we do expect better moisture to return this year. In other words, I'm not anticipating substantial fall drought development in the Carolinas or Virginia. I'm actually expecting the pattern to be a bit more progressive overall as it goes forward. Now, what does this mean longer term? Because La Nina right now is a dominant factor. We got more evidence from NOAA's best model, the CFSV2, that this La Nina is going to work on its peak now in October and November. But by the time we start the new year, I'm continuing to see evidence of a fade. And if it starts to fade, that means that any forecast that's based entirely on La Nina sticking around all winter has a lower chance of verifying. And NOAA has been very clear that that could be an issue this year. You see, on October 20th, last week, they released their newest winter outlook. And they said there's an ongoing La Nina, but we need to know when it's going to fade. And you can read the article if you want, but I just want to take you to the end result. You see, their forecast for the winter temperature outlook and their forecast for the winter precipitation outlook, they tell you is based on evidence we have now, which is that there's a La Nina. And you look back over 70 years worth of data for La Nina and you get these patterns. But they're just as clear as I am that the likelihood of that La Nina, because it's in their models, staying around for the entirety of winter is low. So what that means is we might see a fall off of La Nina at some point. Maybe it's right around the beginning of the new year. In that case, subseasonal factors take over, like the North Atlantic blocking, or the MJO, or the polar vortex. Any of those factors can take over, and they're present all the time. So we just have to be on the lookout for how this might change things up as we go forward. Now, the other people who are watching this very carefully are in South America, where so far this spring substantial drought has developed in Argentina. This has been the major problem area down here. There are some places, when you look back over the last year, are off in terms of total precipitation by more than a foot. And a lot of this has been a lack of some spring rainfall, What we've seen is better conditions north, and that's what we're looking at here. Even the forecast for the next 10 days continues to favor wetter conditions in Mato Grosso, Tocantins. This is Goiás, Minas Gerais, and Bahia, these states over here. Even in Mato Grosso do Sul and Sao Paulo, these areas are seeing better rainfall. If there's drier conditions, it's in Rio Grande do Sul. It's in north-central Argentina. It's along the Paraná River. But an important change happened last week where we saw better rains coming through tomorrow and the next day for Buenos Aires, one of the driest provinces that's right down here. So this is some of the first meaningful rainfall that's going to go through that area. Now, you know how this works. When you're in drought, one rainfall doesn't break your drought. And some of the longer range models continue to forecast drought stress over a major section of Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and southern Brazil going forward. But because of this, let's go take a look here. IMEA, there we go. Because of the recent rains, we can look at soybean planting progress. And the report they released on Friday, there it is, shows that they are planting in Mato Grosso at a pretty fast pace, almost matching last year. Normal's 42%, so you can see we're way ahead of average, the 5-year average. And that's largely been supported by wetter conditions farther to the north. Now, if La Nina lets go, we could see a flip-flop of this. But that's way too off in the future for me to tell you with any sort of confidence. So that's why we talk every week. I'll give you another forecast video next week. Have a good one. Thanks.